Yeah, time to start. So good morning, everybody, and welcome to the June 11th video conference call with the Personnel Board. And I'd like to call a meeting to order. I'd like to ensure we have a quorum. So if you indicate your presence when I call your name, that would be great. So Jim Richardson.
Present.
Nancy Crawley.
Present.
And Bill Moravchik, present. So we have a quorum and we have an agenda. Excuse me. And I'd like to, we're using the agenda that had it was revised to include the FY22 salary increase plan. And what I'd like to do is to let Amy guide us through this item.
Okay, so the typical process is for there to be discussion about, excuse me, this is the problem with the morning meeting. I have allergies every morning. So to have a discussion in the budget process about what funds are available for salary increases, and before the warrant articles are due, to look at that and think of that with the class and comp plan. And so earlier this year, those discussions yielded the recommendation that funds be included for a 2% across the board increase for non-union employees. And at the moment, that's it. That's all that's been identified, so that the scales would move 2%. And at the moment, there's no plans for moving people within the ranges, just together with the ranges, but not within the ranges for performance. So, you know, some employees or other towns would have step increases. We've instead have performance increases that help people to progress. And this year, it's identified that at least at this point, there aren't any funds to do that, but we could provide a 2% increase across the board. So this is a much simplified plan of what has been, what we had done in prior years pre-pandemic. So this policy just applies the same provisions for everybody in these non-union positions. And it would be effective on July 1 to provide a base rate increase of 2%. But that is contingent on there being funds available for that purpose. So town meeting is on Sunday. And if anything, if the were to happen where the budget didn't provide for that, then that increase wouldn't go through. It also says that the pay has to be within the salary range for the position that the employee holds. So if the warrant article 6 that has the class and comp plan that sets the minimum maximum ranges, if that were not to pass and somebody were currently at maximum, then they wouldn't be able to get an increase because their base pay would already be at the maximum. But if it does pass and the ranges go up 2%, then their base pay would also go up 2%. And we have also left an element that we've had for a long time, which is that the performance needs to be at a satisfactory level. So this doesn't provide anything for performance that is, outstanding or above a satisfactory level, but it does provide us to withhold an increase or delay an increase if somebody is at a needs improvement or unsatisfactory performance rating. And that's been our standard for many years. The senior management team has discussed this, and while everybody would like to do more for salary increases, and we are concerned about attraction and retention of employees, this it seems like the reasonable plan based on the circumstances that we are in now and have been in through the pandemic. And that's developing, and the town managers continuing to look at the financial situations and evaluate what we'll be able to do going forward.
Amy, do you know what the unionized employees will get?
Well, we are in contract negotiations with many of them, so no, I can't say for sure. The fire union's contract was settled before pandemic, so we continue to provide them what was agreed on years ago. With the others, we're negotiating, and we will. Yeah, they understand what this amount is and what's been recommended, and so we strive to be consistent with all of the groups, and they're aware of that. But
So I guess obviously the point is we run the risk of if we're trying to retain employees, if the unions get a much more attractive increase, it's just simply going to send a message that it's better off to be in the union.
right. And so the town manager is certainly in negotiations, advises all the unions of what kinds of thresholds we have, and there's only adjustments otherwise anywhere in town if there is something that would just stand out related to market or something like that. It's an ongoing problem.
Oh yeah, sure.
The kind of the process for union and non-union, what we talk about and union strategy is, it doesn't always easily align the way that the timing of these discussions.
Yep. I just didn't know if there was a
Yep.
clearly and well-known disparity that if you come back to them and say, oh, hey, everybody gets 2%.
Yeah.
If the response is going to be.
Yeah, I think the town manager's been sending that as a clear message around town.
So Amy, you're needing a motion to adopt this plan. How much detail is this motion going to need to clearly state what we need to?
Right. There could be a motion that says that moves to adopt the proposed FY22 salary increase plan. Or if somebody wanted to make an amendment, you could say the plan amended as follows. The only thing, again, we would normally do this after town meeting, but because of the late town meeting, I thought it would be better to get it going, particularly if we would have trouble getting a quorum. So the only other thing is, if you are concerned that the language isn't sufficient about the funds and the pay scale, you could say contingent upon town meeting approval of the budget and class and comp plans. That way, if you wanted to come back and revisit it, if something happened at town meeting, you could. But again, there are some safeguards built into this.
All right.
You may have just made that more confusing. So,
any comments from Jim or Nancy regarding the wording to make certain we understand what we need to do?
Yeah, I was just thinking under our agenda number 2, make a motion to adopt a plan consistent using that line.
well, you'd want to adopt the plan as proposed, I think.
Okay.
So the motion then, the simplest fashion would be to move to adopt the FY22 salary plan as proposed.
Right.
I'll make a motion to adopt the proposed FY22 salary plan increase proposal.
Okay. Is there a second, Nancy?
Second. Yeah.
Okay.
Second.
And we will then vote on this. Jim,
Yay.
Nancy,
Yay.
and Bill, yay. So we have determined that we unanimously approve this particular motion. Anything else, Amy, that needs to be brought up regarding agenda item 2, or have we covered all the bases?
All set. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move on to agenda item 3. And I guess it would be, as I look at the first bullet, review status of Articles 5 and 6. Susan, can I ask you to just weigh in on this? I mean, it's my understanding that these have been essentially adopted and that they're ready for presentation at town meeting. Could you maybe help me here in terms of more
Um,
particulars?
Yeah, both 5 and 6 are standard articles that in many past years, including this year, are included on the consent calendar because they're non-controversial and they're just sort of a standard procedure. So there's no reason to expect there'll be any discussion at town meeting.
All right. Any other questions or comments from the Personnel Board in regards to Articles 5 and 6?
No,
No.
Okay.
And Bill,
yeah.
can I just comment? So my understanding is if for any reason that they did, if somebody made a motion to remove from the consent calendar, I believe it takes 10 people to support that. If it did, if either one came off for discussion, it would be handled in the normal order of the articles. It used to be that there would then be a presentation that would be similar to what we would do at public hearing. I think that the moderator is asking that we not do the presentation, that we rely on the information in the town meeting packet. And then there would be discussion, and somebody, whoever asked to take it off, would then speak to why they were asking for there to be further discussion, or perhaps propose a different an amended motion. I'm not anticipating that happening, but I just wanted you to know what that process is. And in that case, Bill, it's not you as the Personnel Board Chair could speak to that matter in that motion.
Okay.
Based on the citizen comments.
All right.
And I will be there too and can certainly help to address any of that.
Yes, that would be important. Thank you. All right. So I think we're ready to move on to the second bullet. And what I'd like to propose here is I've spent some time drafting, thinking about the decision that was made by the Select Board Monday evening, looking at what I think are points that should be addressed, put into public. I'm even at this point thinking that, maybe depending upon how the other members of the Personnel Board feel, these comments could actually be submitted in a letter to the chair of the Select Board. I think that mechanism we should discuss, but many times, well, in my experience, if we feel strongly about what took place at the Select Board meeting, then maybe we should make it clear that these are points that we think were either looked or overlooked or need to be considered for the future. So I'm gonna read this. It's not terribly long, but it'll take here a few minutes. So I'm going to start off. Any objections to this particular approach to discussing the second bullet under item 3? Okay.
not at all.
Okay. So on June 7th, the Select Board voted 3-2 to accept the citizens' proposal to establish an independent citizens committee. This vote was taken with no comments nor input from the Personnel Board, even though the Select Board knew that a Personnel Board meeting was being arranged for today. During Monday's meeting, the Citizens Committee had 2 opportunities to comment on their proposal. The Personnel Board had none. After re-listening to the meeting, it seemed that the 3 Select Board members voting in the affirmative were influenced by the Citizens Committee statement or quid pro quo that if the Select Board accepted the establishment of an independent Citizens Committee, then the citizens petitioners would not move their motion at town meeting. I thought about this and asked myself, is this the Concord way? No discussion on the citizens' motion petition, no discussion on the merits or concerns contained in their motion, and finally, no input from the Personnel Board. My question is, what was the justification to ensure that the citizens' motion not come before the town meeting, and for the Select Board to preempt any discussion on the merits of the citizens' motion? 3 of the 5 select board members must have concluded that there were no questions or issues that needed further discussion or input. 2 of the 5 select board members disagreed and indicated that the Citizens Committee should move their motion at town meeting. So why is this decision by the select board even important to talk about? And I've got a few points here. Number one, much has been said about the difficulty of filling personnel board seats. This has been an ongoing issue for many years. And I want to reiterate, many years. It is interesting to me that only now does the select board give this issue any attention. Thanks to Amy and the town manager's office, I asked what data was available that indicated green card interest in the personnel board. And the answer was there have not been any submissions for the personnel board in more than a year since the town manager's office started tracking the dates received. If one wants to know why it will be difficult to attract new members to the personnel board, and perhaps even keep the 3 sitting personnel board members, I think you only have to look at Monday's select board's decision to move forward with a vote without any consideration or recognition that the personnel board could have meaningful input. Why would any town resident want to serve and invest their time on the personnel board when their investment and their ideas may not be heard or wanted by the select board? Who needs to waste their time voting or rubber stamping new job classifications and salary grades is not worth being on the personnel board. Residents want to participate when there's a good reason, and that reason does not exist now. Second point, with Article 7, there were at least 3 public meetings in which questions and answers were exchanged. Several hours were spent clarifying issues and creating a solid foundation to make a decision on how to vote. Now, how much time has the select board spent to do the same with the citizen motion? How much time has the select board spent to do the same with the citizen's motion? I suspect we all know the answer. 3, today's personnel board agenda was to discuss the citizen's motion. I thought it would be important to clarify points in their proposal and to present these points to the select board for their review and consideration. Aren't the personnel board and the select board supposed to collaborate on matters affecting the personnel board? And since the select board has already moved forward without any acknowledgement or interest as to what the personnel board thinks, there's no need to spend any more time this morning on this subject. In conclusion, for far too long, the select board has failed in its responsibilities to have a viable personnel board with an updated charter. There could have been a different outcome with the personnel board and the select board jointly addressing the problem, and perhaps even creating a task force composed of members from the select board, the personnel board, the town manager's office, or HR, citizens, and even employees could have been established to address the issue. This is a far different strategy than we're presently faced with. In my opinion, there's a need to clarify expectations from the Citizens Committee. Knowing what someone wants, knowing what the committee is looking for, is always helpful in securing a desired outcome. If their expectation is that the independent committee should be comprised of any number of members from the Citizens Committee, I think the select board should know this. If this is an expectation, I trust the select board would ask itself, are the members of the Citizen Committee really impartial? Unless properly managed, which includes a well-defined plan, including a scope and a realistic time frame, this independent committee, which has now been approved by the select board, will be challenged. My fear is that the effort will morph into town personnel matters that would be counterproductive for the effective administration of the town.
Mhm.
One more point, and that's after hearing Matt Johnson's comment that, to his recollection, no previous study committee recommended by citizens had any connection to the town charter-based committees or boards. I wondered I think that at least, whether Matt is right or wrong, it's not the point. I believe the select board should request an opinion from the town council. Is the matter in which this independent committee has been established, which is based on the citizens' motion, appropriate? The select board should finally decide if this is a relevant point to follow up on. All right, so that's the statement that I put together. It obviously encompasses many different aspects, but it all is tied into the personnel board and why we want to serve, why we don't want to serve, how are we going to get new members, and trying to ensure that the personnel board makes it clear to the select board that there has been many shortcomings on the select board's part over the many years, and it's time to stop. Time to start over. Okay, so again, I was thinking that this statement might be sufficient enough to send to the chair of the select board to express our feelings about what has taken place. And I'd like, Nancy and Jim to comment. I mean, obviously, the one decision is that this is enough. It's a matter of public record, and Susan, thanks to her liaison role, she can obviously communicate this, our feelings about this to the select board. We can, on the other hand, decide, we really want to put a stake in the sand. We want to make it clear that we believe we have legitimate concerns that are not being considered. So who wants to start? Nancy?
Yes, I have to say, very well said, Bill. Very well said. I must say that I did not get onto the select meeting until last night, late, unfortunately. And all I could say to you is, all of you, that I was very disappointed. Very disappointed. One of the things that got to me was I felt like the three that voted, the two that didn't, I felt like they were kind of rushed in. There was a comment made by a citizen where the moderator only had a certain amount of time, so if she spent a lot of time on this, I was kind of taken back by it. I was pretty disappointed in the decision. I also felt like, they talked about the personal board not having anybody, but we have just finished 15 months of COVID. Who in the world would want to join a board in the middle of all of that, not knowing anything? I mean, I saw it. That was another thing that I felt wasn't given its due. But most of all, I really feel that the personal board and the select board should be the ones that meet initially to really discuss our bylaw, what we should be doing, what we'd like to do, what they'd like to see us do. We've never really had that chance. And if we both decide at the time that we need to have a task force, maybe doing something else and working with them, to me, it would be a select board member and a personal board member that be working with a very small task force. But right now, it feels like we're trying to do our job, and the task force, if it goes through, will be meeting, discussing our job. And it seems like it's totally against us. So I'm really very kind of disappointed. And going forward, I really felt like the personal board and the select board are the two groups that should get together. We've had Susan, which is wonderful. She could be our liaison, but that we just need to have us meet before we go ahead and appoint an independent council. So.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Nancy. And Jim, could you share with us your thoughts on this?
Sure, love to. So first of all, Bill, I agree 1000% with your comments and your open letter. With the motion last year that got deferred was a clear message that things needed to change in what we were trying to do. There's been no outreach, there's been no discussion to that point, and then suddenly there's an end around, basically. It's been a complete waste of time. And I agree 1,000%. It's it's frustrating and disappointing, a few other words that I probably won't say. And I couldn't agree more with your comments.
All right. I don't know if you can hear my person doing the lawn. So I'd like to go. I thank you both for your comments. What I'd like to do is to go back to my original question: is this letter something that you would suggest we send to the chair of the select board? So that really, I think, is it's a tactic that we have to determine whether or not it's what we want to do. I think if you take a look at it from a benefit analysis, certainly it makes it clear that we feel strongly about what's contained in the letter.
Mhm.
On the other hand, is this beyond what the personnel board should be doing, and it would be viewed negatively by people. I have such little experience, not only with the personnel board, but also with town governance and town politics, that I feel like I'm at a loss. I do know, however, that I could always send this letter on my behalf. I mean, there's nothing that precludes me from doing that as my expression. So I just thought it would be important to determine what is the thinking of the personnel board as it relates to, do we want to have this a letter from the personnel board or not? So that's I'd like to go back to that. Jim, could you give us your opinion, I guess?
No, I would sign on. I would put my name to it. It's not something that you need to send on your own. I would agree. Again, tactic aside, right? So what the end result is we remain as the personnel board doing comp and class, and then a board gets set up to do the stuff that we've clearly indicated that we want to take on. And so yeah, I think your letter clearly states that it's
Okay.
frustration. Yep.
Thank you. Nancy, what would you?
Yep, I absolutely agree. I agree with what Jim just said, but also with the letter. I truly feel like we need to be heard, and we
Okay.
need to be heard as a team.
All right, so I will. I'm going to have to. I guess maybe the simple thing is I will put this in a letter form. I don't know if it's necessary to get electronic signatures. Again, I don't know what the protocol is. I need some help from Amy or from Susan as to what the format should be. What we're trying to do is just to point out to the select board the failings, I think, and the concerns that we have as a personnel board for the future. Now, but obviously, I can deal with the protocol with Amy afterwards. We do need to. How are we doing for time? Well, we do have enough, so we do need to open this up for citizens' comment. But I think what I want to say before I do that is, I recognize that nothing has been done for so long. So this citizens' motion is in some way to say, we can help you guys out. We can help you guys out. The unfortunate thing about that is that we weren't a part of the decision. We weren't a part of the mechanics of how this is going to get implemented, and that's a real problem for me. So I know, and I can anticipate what we're going to hear in a few minutes, but because nothing has been done for such a long period of time, there's a lot of frustration And therefore, this Citizens Committee has decided that, you know, we know there's frustration. We know that the Personnel Board doesn't want to just do. We're trying to help you. So I guess at this point, before I open it up to the public comments, any other final items on this letter? Okay, so
Well,
I'd
I
like
would
to-
just say, and I think you could do it after comments, but I think by the end, you should take a vote that authorizes you
Oh.
to do the letter,
Oh, okay.
either or as written, or, something that sends a message similar to the one that you
Okay.
read.
Yeah, I forgot about that piece, but thank you, Amy. All right, so I'd like to open the meeting up to public comments, and at the conclusion of this, we will state a motion, and then we will have satisfied, I think, the agenda items for today. Is it Jeremy or Chris who's?
Carmen,
Sorry, it's Carmen. It's got her hand raised. Carmen Reese.
Hi, I just have a couple procedural things for you. The first is that since Article 7 is not, since the Personnel Board voted not to move it at town meeting, my plan is to include it with 4 other motions, which also, 4 other articles, which also will not be moved to town meeting, in an omnibus motion to take no action on the 5 different articles. And that'll just streamline our process at town meeting a little bit, and that'll be the first substantive motion that we take up at town meeting. Secondly, just to answer Amy's question about what the process would be in the event that anybody takes an article from the consent calendar. The way we do the consent calendar is the moderator goes through every item, every article that's on that calendar, and describes briefly what the article is about, what the recommendations are by various relevant boards and committees, and a quick explanation of why that article has been placed on the consent calendar. And then I ask if there are, and in these COVID times, 10 voters, we'll go back to 5 voters when we're done with COVID. But I will ask if there are, if anyone wishes to remove this article from the consent calendar. And if there are a total of 10 people who wish to remove any article from the consent calendar, we take it off the calendar, and then we'll just take it up in the ordinary order of the articles as we proceed through them at town meeting. This year, we aren't doing any presentations on any of the articles. All articles will be relying on the presentation materials that are have been posted on the website under the town meeting hearings, and will be printed in the meeting materials. However, I am asking that all article sponsors have somebody available to answer questions and possibly and if called upon, to respond to comments that might be made from the floor about the particular article. So that's what the procedure will look like, and it worked pretty well last year and allowed us to get through the entire meeting in 3 hours last year. So we're hoping to be able to do that this year as well.
Carmen, thank you. I'd like to ask the one clarifying question.
Sure.
Does that mean that in order for the original Article 7, which is in the warrant, to be moved, you now need 5 citizens to endorse that?
No, because Article 7 is not on the consent calendar. There'll be a separate motion that is just to advance 5 articles and have the meeting vote to take no action on them. And that will just be disposing of those 5 articles. And the reason for all of those 5 articles to be in that motion is because we won't have any motions under them. They won't be moved. So it's really a housekeeping matter. So it means that we don't have to talk at all about each of those articles when we get there. Otherwise, what we would do when we got to that article is there'd just be a declaration by the moderator that we don't have a motion, and therefore I would declare that the meeting is taking no action and we would move on, but I can just skip those articles at this point.
But
Yes, ma'am.
Article 7 is not one of those 5.
It is.
It is one of them. Okay, so this sounds like, I guess I'm confused as to how would a citizen actually move Article 7 as stated in the warrant with the procedures that have been set up.
So, you know, I suppose someone could jump up at the time that we have the motion to take no action on the 5 articles and move to amend that motion to remove Article 7 from the motion. And if that happened, there need to be a second. We could have discussion from the floor on why that should happen. And then there would be a vote on whether to approve the amendment to remove Article 7 from that omnibus motion or not. Then when we got to Article 7 in the ordinary course, it could be moved, but if there wasn't any motion under it, I would declare that we were taking no action. So it seems unlikely to me that anyone is going to wish to move the article, and both the personnel board and the select board have indicated that they don't want to move it. So and it's by agreement with the chair of the select board and the town council that I have these 5 articles with no motion under them, all collected into this single motion. And it's really, that's just a streamlining exercise to take care of the 5 of them together so that we can move on and be clearer what we're dealing with at the meeting. So we'll start.
I understand, right?
Yeah.
But I think you've answered my question. In order, you need 2 people. You need a citizen to move and a citizen to second in order to remove Article 7 from the consent.
Actually, you need more than half of the meeting, because one citizen could move to remove Article 7 from that no action motion. Another citizen would have to second it, but then the meeting will have to vote on whether to remove Article 7 from that motion, and that requires a majority vote.
Okay. Thank you. At least I understand procedurally how this would work. And I thank you for that clarification.
I just know, Carmen, I doubt it will happen, but I have heard rumblings, particularly in the last 24 hours, of people that are employees and maybe citizens, or people are citizens they're talking about, that are concerned about the actions that have been taken by the select board, and we're wondering, what can we do? I mean, they were already concerned that Article 7 wasn't moving forward, and they are wondering, how do we get this forward? So I don't know that anybody is willing to will do anything more with that, but just letting you know, there was some discussion, some rumbling about that.
Okay, well, that's good to know, Amy. But that's the process. If there's someone at the meeting who says, no, I don't want there to be no action taken on Article 7, they will stand up and amend that motion. And if there's a second, that person will get to explain why they think that it shouldn't be in that no action motion. And then the floor will be open for questions and discussions about, well, why not? And the meeting will vote and decide whether they want to take it up or not.
Yes, understand. Thank you again. Thank you, Amy. So we must have other public parties.
So for other members of the public, if you want to activate your video and audio, if you have something to say, and identify yourself.
Nobody, Bill, nobody's.
Okay.
looks like they want to speak.
Let's, all right. I want to conclude the meeting this morning. I want to thank, we need to have a motion that the Personnel Board will submit a letter to the Select Board as outlined by the statement that I have, that I made this morning. So we need a motion. Okay, yes, Nancy?
So I make a motion that the Personnel Board submit the letter to the Select Board as ordered, outlined by the chair this AM on Friday, the 11th of June. They're going so fast.
Yes, thank
I
you.
second.
All right, the second has been moved and seconded. We'll now vote as to, on the motion. Jim, you're
Yay.
yay, and Nancy?
Yay.
Okay, and Bill, yay. So this will be put into a appropriate letter format. And I will work with Amy to make certain that the protocol and logistics are properly handled. All right, I think at this point, I'd like to have a motion to adjourn. And again, I really want to thank everybody for 7:30 in the morning. I was thinking, maybe what we should set as a goal that we'll start, let's next time try 7:15. That's see what the pain threshold is for meeting in the morning. Okay, is there a motion to adjourn?
I'd
Yes,
be
I'll
happy
make a
to
motion.
make a motion to adjourn.
I second.
Okay, we have a motion to adjourn and seconded. We'll go around for all in favor. Nancy,
Aye.
Jim,
Aye.
and Bill. Aye. Thank you all again.
Thanks,
See you
Bill.
soon.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Susan. Thank you.